Aloha, everybody. This is Tiggy Maximus with Tiggy Maximus Talks, episode 157 on YouTube. Thank you guys for watching these episodes and listening to the episodes on Spotify. Thank you guys for donating towards the podcast and for following, subscribing both on YouTube and Spotify. There's also a link on my Spotify episodes where you can actually make a donation if you like towards the podcast. Anything's appreciated. On this episode 157, there's a couple of comedy shows I want to talk about, and I want to make a prediction for tonight's UFC 297 main event. Sean Strickland versus Dricus Duplessis for the 185-pound middleweight championship of the world. So, uh, well, I guess we can start with this. So, UFC 297. Uh, from what I've seen, Sean Strickland and Duplessis, two great fighters. Um, I have a hard time thinking one or the other is actually going to win this fight. Because they're about 50-50. And honestly, I I do want Duplessis to win, but I have a feeling Sean Strickland has enough of his tools to kind of beat Duplessis, either by finish or by decision, purely on his striking. If Duplessis feels like this is going to end up being more of a strike fest, then it is going to be a war between the two. Um, but given my prediction for this and what might happen after this, I'm going to say Duplessis will finish Sean Strickland within 5 rounds and become the new middleweight champion. And with Israel Adesanya in the crowd, I think he's going to go into the octagon and confront the new champion. Uh, I also feel that maybe, just maybe, Chimaev might be in the crowd as well. He might also come in as well. And you might plant the seeds for an awesome main event for a future middleweight championship fight. So, uh, I mean, the same kind of goes for Sean Strickland versus Israel again or against Chimaev. I mean, between those four guys, those are like basically the top four in the division. So that's not counting Alex Pereira, who's our light heavyweight champion at 205. So, anywho, we'll see what happens and have some fun with those fights. Have some good food, good company, watching those fights, and just see if I'm right about Duplessis taking home the title tonight. Um, and there's actually the women's. I think it's for the 135. Uh, the 135 pound. Uh, yeah, 135 pound. Um, bantamweight championship is on the line. The title is vacant. Raquel Pennington and Myra Buena Silva. They'll be fighting for the championship, which was vacated by the women's MMA GOAT, Amanda Nunes. I think this is going to be a good fight. There'll probably be some good striking, but I think what's going to happen, um, uh, Bueno Silva, she's gonna finish Raquel Pennington within 5 rounds and become the new women's bantamweight champion. And I feel that she's gonna end up fighting Juliana Pena, who's pretty much waiting on the wings for our title fight, and we'll see what happens with that. There is one other fight I'm looking at. It's Arnold Allen versus Evolev. That one's gonna be a good fight between the two. Evolev hasn't lost a fight yet, but I have a feeling that Evolev, he'll have a hard time with this fight, but I think he's gonna end up winning by probably decision over Allen. Um, that fight might be a dark horse for fight of the night, actually. So, so my picks for tonight: Duplessis, Bueno Silva, and Evolev. See if I'm right, guys. I do want to talk about two comedy shows. We do have a show I went to, the Witch Creek Winery in Carlsbad. Um, that was a good show. It's hosted by and produced by Eric Gilman. I met him at the La Mesa Regal Bar for a show, and he's producing this show at this place in Carlsbad. I didn't mind making the trip to Carlsbad on a Tuesday night, and a good lineup. Your headliner was Fedwon Somo. Uh, Linda Schwartz actually invited me to this show, and I thought that Carlsbad, I like to see a break in the venues I've seen. So this is a new venue to see comedy. So I'm glad I went. So Eric Gilman went up first. Crowd was laughing a lot. Um, he does talk about being a salesman for Cusco Costco knives, where you do demonstrations of how the knives work and how well they work, and you do it in people's houses or conference rooms and selling those knives. He still does it to this very day, as opposed to his job as a comedian and another job, I guess. So um, everybody has their multiple sources of income, like I do. Um, hopefully, this podcast will be another source of income. um, so keep donating, guys, and get those listener counts up. Let Spotify and YouTube know that I'm a big deal. um, so yeah, Eric Gilman, I would say he was an 8.5 for his comedy. Great work. Very humble guy. He's a cool guy. Next person to go up was Josiah Moreno. Guy is super funny. Talks about being mixed race. He owned up to the fact that he's mixed race, and he has some funny jokes about it. Um, he got the crowd laughing quite a bit. It was more than half the crowd laughing throughout most of his set, so that's pretty good. So I would say Josiah Moreno was uh, let's say 8.6 out of 10. So I believe the next person to go up was, I think it was Alan Maisel. I met him before. He hosted the show at the La Mesa Regal Bar where I met Eric Gilman. Um, uh, he came out in a boot, so that was interesting to see. And he was funny. He got the crowd laughing. He did mention, um, I think it was like pointing out some military guys or wearing like the same kind of shirt, or a guy that kind of looked like him, his twin. So he had some good laughs. I thought that he was Alan Mazel was a 8.3 out of 10 for his comedy. Um, Next we had a pop in from, I guess, the guy's from out of town. I think he's from LA, but I think he wants to kind of do shows in LA and also San Diego. So I guess he's getting his feet wet out here in San Diego. So guy had a bit about how he got pulled over, but at the same time he got pulled over by a cop. He had to go to the bathroom. So as he was talking to the cop, he ended up getting out of his car, and then he ended up pooping everything out, and he pooped so much that the cop car um, got knocked over on the side of the road. That got people laughing of how ridiculous that sounds, but Hey, if most of it's true, that's pretty funny actually, even though it's kind of gross but funny. Um, so yeah, I would say he was an 8.6 out of 10. Great stuff. And then next we have Linda Schwartz. Great comic. Um, I think she was the camera person for the whole night, I guess too. So she did her jokes about the egg rolls and the barbecue. That was pretty good. And then she talked about how she dated a guy 14 years older than her, and that's her husband now. And then talked about how she gets to be a stay-at-home mom, and then something about tax benefits. So overall, she has a couple of new jokes too. So crowd was kind of somewhat chilled after a little while. Did laugh at a few things, but overall, I would say a good set, but wasn't as loud for her as it was for Eric, Josiah, and Tommy Mays. Tommy Mays was the pop in from LA and trying to get his feet wet in San Diego. If I didn't mention that already, um, sorry, Tommy. Uh, so yeah, Tommy Mays was 8.6. I would say for Linda Schwartz, I would say she was an 8 out of 10. And then we got our headliner, Fedwon Somo. I actually got to talk to him before the show, and then he kind of sat back, just kind of taking in the crowd. And then he went up, and he started off with his Middle Eastern accent, very peppy, very positive, and then that was just to kind of get him to, get the crowd going. And then he said that that's actually his, not actually his real voice. Everybody laughed at that. Um, then he had some other jokes, talked about his girlfriend or his fiance now, him got into an argument about, and then he started off by saying this is where he might split the crowd, the women and the men. He said that he brought up the topic of a three-way, and uh, uh, and then after that, I mean, it was funny, but then after that, it kind of chilled out, like how it did for Linda. So, I mean, overall, good set with Fed One, but it ended up being very more chilled, and I think he knew that the crowd kind of lost on him. So, I would say Fed One ends up being a 8.1 out of 10 for his comedy. So, overall, good show, great venue. I got to meet the bartender, Mason. Kudos for Mason for being a great bartender the whole night. So if you have a chance, guys, go up to the Witch Creek Winery. Um, Witch Creek Winery. Uh, uh, so it's a great venue for comedy. Go support them. Support your local comics. Um, so if Eric Gilman is producing more shows there, go out and support him in his shows. So also go out and see Linda Schwartz and Fedwon Somo, Josiah Moreno, Alan Maisel, Tommy Mays. Um, so yeah, overall great show, great night. I also went to another show. It was on Thursday. It was a Madhouse comedy show. It was a dating comedy show. Stood Up Live, hosted and produced by Jacobs Johnstone, Chris Espinoza, and Jim Pine. You have a contestant on stage. They are blindfolded, and three comics will do their comedy set, 3 minute sets, um, uh, and then the contestant blindfolded will pick the best of the three based on interaction and their comedy set. And then it goes for men and women. So if a guy was blindfolded, three female comics will do a 3 minute sets and try to impress the um, you know um, uh, to win a date. And then also if a female contestant was blindfolded, then 3 male comics will try to impress her and win a date. So I like the show. Um, so it started with a guy named Drake. He was blindfolded. He was in a frat in college. Um, After he got blindfolded and talked to the host, um, the first comic to go up was Christy Masitani. She just started out in comedy not too long ago, and she is really good at this, and she's gonna end up being so much better. And um, she started doing her set, and then she started to forget her set, and she abandoned her set, and she ended up roasting the host, Jacob, Jim, and Chris, mainly because she talked about 401ks, and do you guys even know what those are? So like she was zinging them. It got super funny. Um, and then she kind of mentioned that she needed a sugar daddy and needed a boob job, and she kind of showed off like her body. I didn't even realize that she had, I don't know, she didn't have a big rack. So so the next person to go up was Wendy Shortman. She's the opposite of Christy. She was, uh, let's say, she had a big rack, and um, she got the crowd laughing quite a bit. That was pretty awesome. Um, and then the crowd laughed a lot at other stuff that she said, and then they brought on Sarah Lee Steiner. Um, she didn't really, she wasn't in it to win it, but she was super funny with the crowd though. That's awesome that all three comics did pretty well with the crowd, and it made for a good time. Um, so I would say Christy Matsutani, her performance, I would say she was an 8.6 out of 10. I would say for Wendy Shortman, I think she was a 8.5 out of 10. And Sarah Lee Steiner, I think she was an 8.6 out of 10. Um, and then Drake, after all the interactions with the comics and also with the host, he ends up picking Wendy Shortman. So kudos on that. Hopefully they had a good date. For the guys, they were trying to win a date with Lauren. Lauren was um, blindfolded. She was wearing a black dress. She mentioned to everybody she changed 3 times for this show. Um, and she was, uh, I guess she was gonna listen to these 3 comics. First guy was Benny Benoit. Guy has like long hair. He kind of owned up the fact that he has long hair. And then I guess there was a comparison between Lauren and Benny, which who had the better hair. He ends up showcasing his hair, model a little bit for all of us. So that was a lot of fun. And then next guy that went up was Brendan Joseph. Guy came out with like a cowboy accent, um, but he was a little more aggressive, and he happens to kind of touch the thigh of Lauren a couple times. And the hosts were like saying, "You can't touch the contestant. You did it twice." So it seems like Brandon and Lauren had a better connection. And then he mentioned, "Lady, you should speak when spoken to." And then I guess she was kind of going along with it. Um, and then Austin Train went up after, and then I guess Lauren had asked him if he ever sent dick pics, and then She then said to him after he said no that do you want to send one tonight? And then like everyone's like, ooh. So all three were pretty funny. Again, they made it for a very fun time. It was very fun, a great time for me and the crowd. So to have all six comics do so well on stage with the contestants, that made for a great show. And I said this is actually a better dating show than the last one that they did. So the one that I went to, and I lost my blue power bank at that show. uh, I was distracted. My fault. I did get the cord though, the charging coaxial cable for it, but I lost the power bank, the blue one. So, um, anywho, Benny, I would say he was pretty funny. 8.4 out of 10. Brennan Joseph, he was pretty funny. A lot of stuff he did was pretty funny. I would say 8.5, even with the aggressive approach. Um, Soft aggressive, I guess you could say. And then Austin Train, I would say he was 8.4. Um 8.4 for his. Um so Lauren ended up picking Brendan as her date. So kudos for those two. Hopefully they had a good date if they actually do go on a date. Um so yeah. Overall great show. I would go again. So if you have a chance, guys, go see Stood Up Live with Jacob, Jim, and Chris. And they're gonna move that show in a lot of places. So you know, more power to them. And hopefully, you guys come out and support local comedy for them. And also the comics that were on stage: Brandon Joseph, Benny Benoit, Austin Train, Christy Matsutani, Wendy Shortman, and Sarah Lee Steiner. So that's it for me, guys. Next time I talk to you guys, I'll talk to you about the NFL playoffs. It's happening again this weekend, second round. I'll tell you guys more about UFC 297, and I'll talk more about these two comedy shows I went to. Um, the Friday night one, I went to the American Comedy Company to see the headliner Kelsey Cook and her opener Tommy Brennan and the host Shar Rampton. All three are super funny comics. I'll love to talk more about that later, guys, in episode 158. And I will talk about Brad Williams, which I'm going to tonight because I can't go watch UFC 297 tonight. But Brad Williams is at the Balboa Theater in downtown San Diego, happening tonight at 7:30. So that should be a fun show. Go out and see Brad Williams. Guy's super funny. I saw him one time at Solana Beach at the Belly Up for the Adam Carolla show. It was a live taping with Chris Kimball's Hume and Adam Carolla and Brad Williams. So hopefully with Brad Williams headlining tonight, I think I'm going to have a good time tonight. So hopefully I can take some pictures. Anywho, that's it for me, guys. So you know the saying goes. Boom! Tiggy Maximus signing off, baby. All right, later, guys. Have some good food, good company, good fights. Watch some good fights and watch some good comedy shows. And I'll talk to you guys later. Booyaka!